you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
This is Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, there are ladies, things that makes it official. Welcome to the big show. Welcome to over 16 years and 2,800 episodes of the Chris Voss Show, where we've been bringing this show for so long, I have to use a cane when I talk on the mic. Anyways, for the show, your family, friends, and relatives, go to Reads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and Facebook.com/Chris Voss. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Today's featured author comes to us from bookstolifemarketing.co.uk. With expert publishing to strategic marketing, they help authors reach their audience and maximize their book's success. Today we have an amazing young man on the show. We're talking about his journey through life and everything else. His book is entitled Damaged: A First Responder's Experiences Handling Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, out June 17th, 2013, by James Meuer. We'll get into some of his stories and journeys from his life as a fireman, first responder, and we're going to find out and some of the PTSD he experienced and the stories that haunt him. So let's get into it with him now. Welcome to the show, James. How are you?
No, I'm doing good. Thank you, sir, for having me.
Thanks for coming. We really appreciate it. You were born at Travis Air Force Base in California to a military family. You spent early years in Texas before returning to California, and you initially pursued an education to be a doctor. You became a paramedic and a firefighter instead, and after a 16-year career, you moved to Texas and continued working as a paramedic. You also did paramedic work in Saudi Arabia, and you returned to continue your career in Texas. You had some spinal fractures you suffered over the years that took its toll, and being diagnosed with PTSD, you reluctantly retired. And his first book, Damaged, is a story of what his experiences are and the stories and lessons of life. Welcome, James, to the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much for tuning in as well. Give us any .coms. Where can we find you on the interwebs and all those places?
I used to have a webpage. I used to have everything. I got hacked a few months ago and had to restart. I have a Damaged the Book on Facebook, and I don't have near as many followers. I had over 50,000 followers on there. And my personal Facebook, Instagram lost it all. So I've slowly put it back out there. Had to change all my emails and passwords, which
really? Wow.
I can't remember half the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sucked because as soon as I lost Damaged, they changed it to some other name and page, and took all my followers. And I thought, I sure hope they're not spreading false stuff. But hey, it happened. So I'm kind of back at the beginning. And actually, honestly, I wasn't sure if it was really worth getting going again. You got to have those online brand presence, as it were. Yeah.
People who read your books, they always want to find you, so that's important to them too. So let's get into it. Give us the 30,000 overview of what's inside your book.
Oh, that's my heart and soul in this book.
Mm-hmm.
It was a hard time writing it. I'd get up before anybody else in the house in the dark of the morning and sit there at my computer and write as much as I could, crying through the whole thing. And in fact, I haven't read it since it was last edited and put out for publishing. And these last few days, I tried thumbing through it and tried writing it and reading it some more. And it is hard now as it is then. And I've come through a lot, and I don't speak just for myself. There's hundreds, thousands of men and women out there doing this job, from, police, fire, ambulance, dispatchers, all of us out there.
Mm-hmm. And
man,
so you lived this experience in the business for 16 years total, is that correct?
26 total. I started off as a EMT and then a paramedic in Sacramento.
Okay.
Then I moved to the fire department, and then
go ahead.
And then I was back to the ambulance, and then I did some teaching at the local paramedic school, and then I moved back to Texas and started up there. And then I went to Riyadh for a short bit. I came back earlier in my tour because my middle daughter was sick, and I came back to her and then went back to work on the ambulance and then in the hospital. And then I was done. I didn't have it anymore. You know, I had a fracture in my neck and my mid back. I had surgery on my back. And these are actual common injuries amongst us out there, you know, because
all the stuff you carry, those heavy hoses and gear.
You know, it's a young man's game, I guess, if you want to say that. Man, you know, the injuries, you know, I've got scars on every part of my body, either from the job or from, you know, I went through, I've done it. You know, I'll be honest, I haven't told very many people this, but except for my counselors and some close friends, I did some self-cutting, you know. There's a song, you know, you bleed just to know you're alive.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was kind of it. And
that's interesting. Now, was that part of maybe the PTSD, do you think, or was that just coping mechanism, or
a little bit of both? See, what PTSD affects everybody differently, but yet the same. You know, we have some commonalities, but then we do things different. One guy may just drink himself blind every night, and another guy could be using drugs, and somebody else is doing something else. Now, me personally, I was an alcoholic. I became an addict. You know, I was getting prescribed so many pain pills.
Wow.
I was taking vast quantities, and then I played the system and went to med clinics, paid cash, got my drugs, you know, I did those kind of things. And, you know, and honestly, I just wanted to go to sleep and not have dreams, you know, being able to sleep, because I wasn't sleeping. And that's a big thing with most people with PTSD. We don't sleep very well.
Yeah.
We have dreams that are just so vivid. My first dreams I remember getting was just all these faces coming at me and screams and stuff. And it got to a point where I was afraid to even go to sleep.
Really?
So,
wow.
You know, I'd stay up as late as I possibly could, you know, get up after 4 hours maybe, and being fretful, and be up early and just go on through life and do it all over again.
There we go.
You know,
well, let's start. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, PTSD is waking up tired from the day before, and having to act normal and put a smile on your face.
So let's talk about the beginning. Let's start from there, and we'll walk through some of the different instances and stuff in your book. What made you want to get into this field? What was there a moment that you know, so there was some sort of component that happened, there was an impetus, and it was like, I think I'd like to do this.
Yeah, actually, a good friend of mine suggested, hey, why don't you become an EMT and help pay for your med school? And so I did it, man. I totally loved it. I fell in love with it. And
what did you love about it specifically?
I think we all that do the job have a bit of, you know, we like that adrenaline rush. I liked the independence involved. You know, we could go in, we pick up our ambulance, and then we hit the streets, and you're just there for a call to come in, and no one's, we had supervisors on duty and those things, but we weren't, I don't want to say we weren't watched. I mean, if we screwed up, obviously we took our hits, but it was the independence of it and being able to do stuff. And I was doing stuff more than med students were. I would talk to some friends that were in med school after I realized there's no way I can afford med school, and I had friends in med school, and they were like, man, I haven't even done that yet. And I haven't even done that yet. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the late nights, the early mornings. I loved the people we met. And honestly, I loved helping people. I still do.
Yeah.
And no one told you it takes a toll on you. They don't teach you that in school. Hey, you better guard your mind. Stuff's going to hit hard, and you're going to have to deal with it. And it might cause all kinds of issues in your life. And boy, did it.
Yeah. There's a price to pay for sometimes our visions of paradise. But, the need to want to serve others, to help others, to make people feel good, save people, be the person who runs in when everyone's running out of the building, the hero of the day or the hero in life. God bless that there are people like that, because a lot of people just run away.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. We run towards the flames and
run towards the danger. You guys are like, danger where? Let's go there. And everyone else is like, run away. When did you, I imagine there were quite a few years in the beginning where maybe you really kind of enjoyed it, or did right away you start seeing some of these things that haunt you now?
It was real early in my book. In the very first chapter was, I would say, the worst call I ever had. And I'd only been on the job. You see, that was 1988. So I'd only been on the job 2 years when this call happened. And it was first thing in the morning. We get this over the radio. You can just hear this firefighter just freaking out on the radio.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say freaking out. You could tell he was excited, and that usually everyone's calm on the radio. And then, so we started heading out that way, and then they canceled us. And I said, there's no way we're going to be canceled to a call involving a child. And looking back, we should have canceled, but we didn't. And we went forward, and it was pretty dramatic. And it was the first time I ever had to tell somebody that their loved one had passed away.
Oh no. Yeah,
I'm glad I didn't actually have to say those words. I just told the mom, I said, your daughter, and she said, it's okay. She took my hand, and I was like, okay, this is different.
Yeah.
But, and not to spoil the story, but there's a good ending to that, because in 2018, I met her mom, the little girl's mom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had been trying for years to find where she was buried, because I thought, I'm going to go put some flowers there someday. And I found her, and they had this memorial page, but nothing was written. So I wrote on there, I said, you don't know me from Adam, but I was the paramedic that was there that day. And a day doesn't go by that I think about you. And it wasn't shortly after that I get this email, and I couldn't even open it. I gave it to my wife, and I said, here, it's Krista's mom. Now, changed her name in the book, but her mom has since said I could say her name. So her real name is Krista. And so my wife, Tracy, opened it, and we ended up, her and her son, who was 5 at the time, came over to our house, and we had a good talk. And I realized I'd been feeling guilty all these years. I felt guilty because I didn't do anything, because there wasn't anything that could have been done.
But you felt like you just felt that survivor's guilt, maybe? Would you call it that, or something else?
I don't know. I really don't know. I remember the next 4 days, because I had 4 days off, because the way our schedule was, we'd get 4 days off in a row after working on and off for 3 days. I spent 4 days in a fog. And then I remember going and taking a shower and just having a heck of a good cry. And then I pushed it in somewhere in my brain and sucked it up and moved on and acted like it was like everything was cool. But every once in a while, just like every call, it comes back and it haunts you. Really? And I kept thinking about Krista and her throughout the years and visited the school where she attended, and they had put out a little plaque memorial out there. And yeah, it never seems to leave you, because one day I was in there teaching paramedic class, and this guy comes in and he goes, "You were on that call with that little girl." And I was like, "Don't mess with me on this one, man. Do not mess with me on this one." And he's, "No, I was in her class that day at school when they came and got her sister."
Oh, wow.
I was like, "Yeah, wow.
Small world."
Yeah, exactly.
I imagine, do a lot of firefighters and EMT folks, people who work in the paramedic field, do you guys tend to suffer from these ailments? And, I can't imagine, it seems a stupid question because I can't imagine that it wouldn't. But what's up?
Yeah, it hits us more than we'd like to admit. We're supposed to be 10 feet tall and bulletproof. We put on our turnouts. We got this gear. We got stuff on our belt, and here we are. And none of us wants to admit that something hurts, or that we now have a dent in our armor. Nobody wants to admit. Back when I first started, it was called burnout, and everyone's, I'm never going to burn out, And then after going through so much crap and finally getting to a counselor, which they send you to a counselor who swears they're an expert in PTSD. And the first counselor I had, she was crying.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I wasn't too sure about this counseling thing. And then when I was back in Texas, I started seeing they actually started testing me. And then I went to a counselor. She said PTSD. And I was like, wait, man, that's for the military. That ain't for us.
Yeah.
That can't be. And they're like, no, it can affect you. And this is why. And it's a psychological injury. It's an injury to our brain.
Yep.
It's a normal response to abnormal things we've seen. And if you don't deal with it at the time, it just adds up. And people probably have heard this, putting a rock in a backpack. Unless you take that rock out and you just keep adding them, it just gets heavier and heavier.
Yeah, and they're beating you up and banging around back there.
And then it explodes some way. It's got to leak out. One counselor told me I'm like a volcano, and it just spurts out on the side. Now, I used to have a temper. I'd go from 0 to orange jumpsuit in a second, and that did happen on a couple occasions. Let me swear, I never physically hurt anybody but myself by breaking my hands, punching walls. The dang engine I couldn't get a spark plug out of. And, I spent a couple of nights in a psych ward. I had road rage. I was angry. And anger seems to be a common thread amongst us that have PTSD.
Yeah.
But none of us, initially I didn't want to admit it. And that's the hardest step. The hardest step is asking for help. Because once you've done that and you let the cat out of the bag, you can't stuff that cat back in. You've got to go forward and continue. And it's all started. My wife she says, if you think you're the only one and you feel like you're the only one, there's got to be others that feel that way.
Yeah.
And so I put this book together, got it out there. I've made a few friends across the country. I got a friend in Philly Fire Department, Montana, Arkansas, different places that have, in fact, my friend in Philly, he says I saved his life once he read my book. And his daughter actually wrote me and said the same thing. You saved my dad's life.
Wow. That is powerful.
I'm like, dude, I'm just some guy that's lived through this, that wrote a book to let others know they're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And to let others know there's a medical, physiological reason behind all of this. We have this little part in our brain called the amygdala that will not let us forget. Sorry if I get too loud. I get excited. I'm passionate about this. Boy, I can get into this. Because so many people, to me, have said, dude, that happened a long time ago. Why don't you just let it go and get over it? Oh, my God, if you think I could, I would.
Yeah.
You think I like not sleeping? You think I like being a mess? And And now I've been clean and sober 20 years. I don't look back on that time. And I can go. It's my oldest daughter is now a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
My next child, a daughter, is a doctor, and now my son's graduating paramedic school.
Yeah.
And I said, didn't she all learn anything from me?
Well,
yeah, they don't do drugs and drink.
That helps.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times when we're doing drugs and drinking, when we have trauma or damage or PTSD like you had, or some sort of infliction that our mind just won't let us alone, and it beats us over the head with our memories and haunts us with stuff. A lot of people turn to drugs and alcohol to anesthetize that and make it go away.
Yeah.
And it's not a good way to handle it. Obviously therapy is, but some people's scars are deeper than others and they take a long time to heal.
Exactly.
My friend, I'll never forget, my friend became a paramedic on an ambulance crew in New York, and he did it right before COVID started.
Oh.
And he may be going through some PTSD. He saw some shit, told me some of the shit he saw. Part of it was they would, somebody be like, hey, we are from Bob for a week, because everyone was isolated. And, then they go find Bob bloated with his air conditioning off, and he died of COVID and had been there for 5 days or something. And just extraordinary stuff that they would find. They would just find people that had died and weeks had gone by. And no one was really noticing, like when we were all in lockdown, no one would notice you were like, hey, we haven't heard from Bob for a while, he hasn't shown up at the bar because no one was at the bar. And so everyone just figured, Bob's isolating. But yeah, he told me some stories, and the stuff that you guys have to see are just like war, open bodies, destroyed bodies, people in pain and tragedy and begging for help. And I mean, it's extraordinary what you guys go through. You guys carry a lot of weight for society when it really comes down to it.
It can get heavy. And, again, like I said, man, we're supposed to be 10 feet tall and bulletproof. We can't let anybody think that we're weak at all. And it's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. That's the strongest thing you can do, because that's the hardest part, like I said just a little bit ago. And so many people don't. But I remember when COVID was, I was so glad. I'm like, I am so glad I'm not out there working this. And then I got to thinking, I was like, now the world understands what it's like when you have PTSD and you don't want to go outside.
Yeah.
Now, I locked myself away when I was back in Texas, 2 years in my parents' house, just blowing up another marriage. And I stayed in. And I thought, wow, I can order food. I can order, groceries. I don't have to go anywhere. I left to go to the doctor and to church. And that's the only times I left. And I was happy with that. Till November 2011, when I started talking to my now wife, who I hadn't talked to since 1978. And so I loaded up everything. I put that in my book. I loaded up everything. I had a beat up F-150. It was smoking part of the way here. And I drove here.
All right.
And now we've been married 12 years. Best thing that's ever happened to me. Totally. And that's one thing. If you get a good support group, like my wife, oh my goodness. She found me a PTSD support dog, and I cannot say how valuable those dogs are.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
I had never heard of one. I was like, what the heck do they do? And then I got one from this organization in Texas. And to say their name, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah. Totally fine. Yeah.
They're called TADSOC, Train a Dog, Save a Warrior.
Oh.
And so I got this dog, and he was half Great Dane, which was perfect because I could hold his collar and not have to bend over. And he was the biggest sweetheart baby. And let me tell you, man, if I were to meet somebody brand new, he'd stand between us.
Really?
And then once he saw everything was cool, he'd sit behind me. And if he hadn't seen me in a few minutes in the house, he'd look for me, put his chin on my knee, and I'd tell him it's okay, and he'd go lie back down. He was great. He was great.
It's so great how dogs are. I'm glad there's companies that do that. You know, a man's best friend is a dog. It's the only unconditional love he's ever going to get in his life, other than maybe his mom. And they have such a way of connecting with you and monitoring your emotions. Like I can just be, I'm not visually upset, like I'm not crying or yelling or anything, but I can just feel like depressed or, you know, if something happens, you're just like, what the, you know, and you're kind of feeling it, but you're not really exhibiting it much. And they know. They'll come over and start, you know, hey, you need to relax, maybe pet me, go throw the, you know, and they really keep you grounded too. You know, my dogs come in and they go, hey man, you've been sitting in this stupid office for too long. Get off your ass and come out here, get some fresh air, some vitamin D, sun, and play with us.
Yeah. When my first dog Cosmo passed away in 22, my wife got me another dog and we were like, okay, we'll put him through training. We'll do this. We'll do that. And we started the training, but then I like him the way he is. I don't want to, I like him, and he's a doodle. So he's all over the place, and he's probably sitting outside my door right now.
He's ready to check on Dad.
Yeah. He's that too. Like you were saying, if I'm feeling like crap one day, he'll just come and lay on me and make sure. And he checks on my wife too. Now my wife has some medical issues, epilepsy, migraines, other things going on. And, you know, he wants to check on her every once in a while too.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I suggest to people dealing with PTSD, besides getting a hobby to keep you busy, keeps your mind active, is get a dog.
Yeah.
Get an animal. They'll love you. They'll look in on you with, you know, don't
get a cat. Just get a dog though.
Cats are different. They're like, screw you, buddy.
50% of the time they like you, and 50% of the time they hate you and don't want anything to do with you. And so people always ask me, Chris, why didn't you ever get married? I'm like, look, if I want someone who hates me half the time and loves me half the time, I'll just get a cat. That's my marriage joke.
Yeah, Tracy is my fourth marriage, and yeah, I know. I blew them all up. My anger, drug use, alcohol, stupid stuff. I blew them all up. I take responsibility for those. But man, Tracy has been such an angel. She has been supportive. She has read about PTSD. She has the ability to get in my face, and it cracks me up, and I just can't be mad or upset anymore. I just want to smile at her and just, you.
It really helps if you have that supportive partner.
Yeah.
That instead of antagonizing, you know, your afflictions, they help. Yeah. They'll help you cope with them or deal with them. And you don't need people making it worse. Right.
And I had a relative. I was at my folks' house. I picked up the phone and she's like, "Are you still doing all those bad things?" And I was like, "No." And I said, "You know, I held a lot of dead babies." And she said, "You think you're the only one? You need to stop this and get over it." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." See, even family.
Jesus.
Yeah, sometimes family doesn't even get it. Now, I haven't spoken to my brother in, I don't know, 10 years.
You and me.
Yeah, and I haven't spoken to my sister in over 30. I don't know, and I'm good with it. You know, I still hope one day maybe we can make amends and get through it. But you know, a lot of that was caused from PTSD and my anger and drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. And yeah, it was crazy, and it still is now. You know, I don't have as many dreams anymore. Mm-hmm. I like to say I made peace with my dreams.
Oh.
I don't know what it was. I'd start getting dreams and I'd be like, nope, these are dreams. Don't want to listen or watch these anymore. I'm done here. And eventually they stopped. In fact, I can't remember the last time I had any kind of dream.
Oh, wow.
You know, yeah, every once in a while I'll have a nice dream that I remember just the smallest piece of in the morning. But most of the time I don't even think I dream anymore. But you know, it's cool. I'm getting sleep again, but I'm still in counseling. You know, I started going, once I got back to California, I was in there twice a week. Then it went to once a week, then once every other week. Now I'm once every 2 weeks. And so I'm almost done with that. I feel good. I feel strong. I got tools to deal with, the heavy breathing, cold water on the face, call somebody, talk to them, it's working for me. It's working for us. We're doing good. It's just, I got so much that I could say. I don't know how much time you got left, but
we're running down on time. But we also want people to buy the book because they need to read these stories. They need to read your experiences.
Like I said, I got it. And when I write stuff, I write it short, sweet, to the point. And that was one thing in English class in school, creative writing. I didn't add a lot of the fluff, I didn't do the Melville 8 pages of descripting of the eye of the whale. I wrote it short, sweet, to the point. And I put in some real calls I had that were real tough. And the first one is tough, but it has a good outcome, but it took years to get that outcome. And I talk about some of the physiology and the things that I went through. And yes, I talk about God in my book, not to beat anybody over the head with the Bible, not to say this is the only way. There's more than one way to get through it, but my faith being renewed got me through it. And that's it. It's not there to, I saw a review where the guy wrote, it's not for atheists. He should have mentioned it. God was in there. And I'm like, that's not the story.
From the point. Yeah.
The point is that I had some bad calls. I had a lot of bad calls, a lot of pediatric calls. And honestly, I think I've only had, out of all of the deliveries, I think I only had one that survived.
Wow.
And I hate to tell you the number, 37, all those others didn't make it. So yeah, those all affected me. But, it talks about just, there's some poems in here I wrote and one my wife wrote, and what exactly is PTSD? It's a brain injury, and it affects you deeply, whether we want to admit it or not. So I wrote this to let other people know they're not alone. There's thousands of us out there. And if anybody wanted to email me, it's on the back of the book. It's damagedthebook at Outlook. You can write me there. I answer things. I've taken phone calls in the middle of the night. I'm helping a buddy out right now who was in a terrible accident a few weeks ago. I'm helping, and he was a paramedic I used to work with years ago. And getting a hobby helps. A buddy of mine who also has PTSD, and also another paramedic, and that started me disc golfing.
Disc golfing, oh.
Yeah, wow, this is pretty cool.
That's where you throw the frisbee and it goes in the steel net thing there?
Yeah. The steel
they have one by my dog park.
Oh, that's cool.
People are like doing the thing. I'm like, that's kind of cool.
I'm nowhere as good as he is or as good as all these people out there, but it sure is fun just to walk through the woods. I mean, they have one in Golden Gate Park. They have them up the coast of California in the redwoods, and it's so beautiful and peaceful.
I often say if you ever want to learn how to golf, or if you ever want to learn how to swear, try and learn how to golf.
Oh, I bet. I bet. That's like me at mini golf, doggone wrestling ball.
Yeah.
It's always the ball's fault too.
Yeah, but frisbees might be a little less forgiving. Plus, you don't spend, $1,000, $1,500 on a custom set of clubs and shit like I do. I have these long arms, so I had to have custom clubs for myself.
I don't know. Some of these discs are hundreds of dollars.
Are they really?
Yeah.
I guess that's how everything works nowadays, right?
My buddy has, I don't know, I couldn't tell you, a couple hundred, it looks like.
Does he really?
He's got a trunk full. He's the one, he gave me all my discs in the bag and all that.
See, I remember those $5 ones from the 70s when I grew up, when Frisbee was like the thing for a while there.
Yeah, and some guy decided, okay, there's drivers, mid-range, and putters, just like in regular golf.
In Frisbees?
Yeah, and they're shaped differently. The plastic's way different. Oh my gosh,
Wow.
it's crazy.
Somebody hand me a 5-wood frisbee, please.
Yeah, I just throw them and see where they go. And
my punter frisbee.
Yeah.
Gonna punt frisbee up. Yeah, I'll have to check them out. They right next to the dog park. It runs alongside the dog park there. They have a whole wood swing. And so it's crazy, man.
I got 3 sitting here.
Oh, do you? Let's see here.
Did you see them?
Go ahead and hold them up if you would. Oh, yeah. Whoa.
See, they're different on the edges.
Oh, yeah. They probably catch more wind or air.
Yeah, one's a driver, one's a mid-range.
I turn one into a drone and then just fly it right into the basket.
Yeah.
That's probably the smooth one. You just make it look like a frisbee, only underneath there's like a little propeller drone. But no. The great thing about sharing your stories, James, is you never know who you're going to impact. You're going to reach so many more people than you'll ever meet, you'll ever know. I remember one time I was in editing and I was losing my fucking mind, and I was writing 18 hours a day and editing, and the editor would come back and be like, these 50,000 words are all shit. We kept 1,000, just rewrite the thing, that sort of stuff. And it felt like that. But right. I remember I complained or something online on my Facebook. Oh, this is bullshit. I think I'm just quit. I'm just going to throw all this shit in the trash. No one cares. No one's going to read this crap that I'm writing. I'm no great writer. And one of my author friends who'd written multiple books took me aside and they said, there is a person out there who needs your book. And there's only one voice that's going to get to them and save them. And it's your voice. And they need you to write this book. There's probably more than that. But there's at least one person out there. And if you can't do this book for yourself, do it for them. And wow, that floored me. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And we've had authors on the show that they just wrote books on, improving life and better mindset and stuff. And one day they were at a bookstore signing books, and a gal came up and said, you helped me get out of prison. And she's, what? That's not really what my books do. And she's, we took your books. They were uplifting and positive. We were in prison with a bunch of other females, and we created a book group where we'd each take turns reading your book. And we learned how to plan our life so that we could leave prison without rescinding back. And so she keeps a picture of that gal in her jumpsuit from prison at her desk so that when she writes, she kind of knows who she's writing for. And so I think you're going to save a lot of people and help a lot of people with your book, my friend.
Again, if it's just one, then that's good. Yeah, I keep a picture of Krista above my right up here.
Uh-huh.
And she's looking over because I couldn't tell what she looked like that day, the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So her mom gave me a picture of her.
That's awesome.
Sweet little girl.
Yep. And sometimes we just need to keep fighting for those people.
Yeah.
Right? There'll be others.
It gets tiring sometimes, I still have moments. I still leave a pair of pants beside the side of the bed where I can just jump in and go.
Yeah. Like in your firefighter days.
Yeah. I have not been able to stop that. Some nights.
Maybe it's comforting.
It is to me. It's just natural.
And that's fine.
And some days I check the door locks 3, 4, 5 times a night, and some days it's like, nope, I'm not even going to bother.
Yeah.
I know it's locked. I did it once. It's good. God, I can't even remember the word for it. It's not
OCD.
Yeah, OCD. I know. I got OCD.
I got that too.
ADHD.
I got plenty of that. In fact, I just got on testosterone replacement. It kind of dissipated with my old age and worn off in my 50s, and I was like, this is nice. I don't have ADHD anymore, and it's so nice to be able to look around and not, squirrel. And then I got on testosterone replacement therapy, which made me feel like I was 30 again, and it brought it all back. It's back. So it's amazing I can do this show without, getting up and walking off to go get something or something.
Yeah, I'm like that too. I hardly ever sit. I'm like, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got this. I'm all over in hyper, I forget the name of the word, where you're always on alert. Yeah. I'm always thinking, I'm building contingency. If somebody comes in this window, this is what I'm going to do. I sit in a restaurant so I could see as much as I can, eyeballing people. I know where everything is in the house. I can tell you, it's on the top shelf on the left. It's facing that way. It's green bottle, And it's crazy. I hate it. It's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. It's good when you can use it for stuff that, doesn't disable you. But if I'm monitoring, one thing that's really helped me, I guess we can get a plug in here. You might want to try it to help you. It helps me, but I don't use it as often as I should because I just had to dig it out from under my desk. But it's called a Pomodoro clock. Pomodoro clock. It just like the tomato, Pomodoro, like a Pomodoro tomato. And what it does is you can set focus times on it. You're not going to be able to see that very well. I think that's going to blow out. So you can see there's a little timer there.
Yeah.
And so you can choose 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 25 minutes, 30, and 60. And then you set it up, and then when you want to pause it or stop it, you lay it on its back. But basically, you sit in front of you when you want to focus on doing a task, and you have to kind of use your own control too. You got to be like, okay, because your brain goes squirrel, and you're like, no, squirrel. We're in the time mode here. This is the focus mode, and that really helps. You can get them really cheap on Amazon. Pomodoro clock.
Yeah, I usually do. I have so many fidget spinners and things like that. I'm constantly.
Yeah.
I spin my rings, all those different things. I'm constantly, if I can't even watch a 30-minute TV show without getting up 2 or 3 times to do something stupid.
It's hard, but it's a CEO disease. Most top CEOs and successful people have it. It's a cutting sword one way or another. But if you can learn to ride the tiger a little bit and tame it, it doesn't seem like it can ever get it tamed, but it can really help. James, as we go out, give us your final thoughts. We want people to pick up your book and read your stories and your journeys and help other people with it. Give us your final pitch out and .coms where people can find you on the interweb, sir.
The book is Damaged. The first responders experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder. I had to write it all out because the editor didn't think that anyone would know what PTSD was.
Really?
It's written out. That's how you have to find it. It's on Amazon. That's the only place that it is at this point. It is Kindle or paperback. It's a short, sweet, to the point, hard hitting, but I think it's very informative. And if I can get one person to realize that they're not alone, I hope that I could reach more and that they would all realize they're not alone and ask for help and talk about it. Because it helps.
That is the great thing about sharing our stories. A lot of times, sometimes we get in those holes and we think that life just hates us. The universe hates us. No one else goes through this. We kind of beat ourselves up a little bit there. And the sharing our stories is the greatest thing. Like I said, I thought no one's going to give a crap my stupid stories, but there's people that they're searching for those messages. They need those blueprints, those stories, the blueprints of salvation, of redemption, of the phoenix rising from the ashes. And that's the reason we love those stories so much. It's because we all fall down.
You can find me on Facebook under Jim Meuer because I had to change my name when I got hacked. So look for me at Jim Meuer. Me, long hair, wearing a hat, big straw hat. I was supposed to wear a straw hat out in the sun, skin cancer and all. And look for me, write me there. I'll do my best to hit everybody back. What's the other thing I was going to say? Oh, I'll figure it out. Probably about 2 or 3 in the morning it'll come to me.
We'll have a link for it all on the Chris Voss Show. So if there's a link there, just send it to us and we'll put it on there. Thank you very much, James, for coming on the show and sharing your story and everything that hopefully you'll just keep helping more people, even though you're not in the paramedic field still. You'll keep paying it forward.
I hope so. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this audience.
You got it. Folks, order up his book wherever fine books are sold. It's entitled Damage. Or I'm sorry, let me recut that. It's entitled Damaged, a First Responder's Experiences Handling Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. Out June 27th, 2013. Thanks so much for tuning in. Refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Or also haunt you in your sleep. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss. Linked it Facebook.com/Chris Voss and Facebook.com/Chris Voss. And maybe half the time I'll haunt you in your sleep. If you don't, but if you do, then you'll get wonderful dreams. And I'll just tell the dream catcher gods to send you wonderful dreams. I don't know. I'm just making up stuff, clearly. Good. Be good to each other, folks. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.